All right, good afternoon. Happy Saturday. Just want to be able to do another podcast, which I did last night. And last night it was a different type of podcast that was near and dear to my heart. And this was for a terminally ill combat veteran that was pretty much, I made him make a wish on it. And I made it to a point where people can understand it. But, the fact of the matter is that I was able to give that person his last request to be able to more or less enjoy a podcast and be able to reach out to individuals based on the nature that he was doing his nonprofit. And the biggest thing that I want to be able to say that we, with my co-host, Marcus Newcomb, is that if you like the segment of LinkedIn Perspective, share it, like it, tag it. And I want to be able to introduce Marcus Newcomb, a good friend of mine. We've been able to collaborate here on LinkedIn for quite some time. And he's a leadership catalyst and strategist, been able to help people like myself to be able to redirect the challenges of career and inventing themselves. Also understand the limitations of where you're at, because we keep on repeating ourselves in our career mode. But the biggest thing I can honestly say is with the assistance of Marcus has helped me change the narrative. We've had a conversation, but Marcus, feel free to introduce yourself because we're doing another segment of LinkedIn Perspective. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Hiram, for this introduction. So welcome, everyone. Really looking forward to run this session again with Hiram. And I very much encourage everyone not to only share comments, but actually to share questions, because Hiram and I love nothing more than actually helping you guys during this 60 minutes. So please shoot the messages, shoot the questions whenever you hear something you'd like to have an answer for. So just in short, who am I? I am a leadership catalyst. And as Hiram said, I love challenging corporate leaders, managers, and entrepreneurs. And what I really push them to is to find courage. Because, if you want to push your boundaries and chase your dreams, usually what's missing and lacking is the courage to do it. I can show people how to do it, but if you lack courage, you will have it as a theoretical background and you say, okay, I would know how to do it, but I do not dare to. And that's mainly my job. And that's what I've done with you as well, Hiram. I literally helped you to develop the courage in a very quick way. So the journey leads to greater influence, impact, and income. And in the end, real personal fulfillment for the people. So this is pretty much what I'm doing. Is I'm married to a wonderful woman from the US. So I've always had an affiliation with US. Most of my clients are in US. I just love the attitude, and mostly what Hiram and I have in common is the can-do mentality. So we really believe that if you really want something, then you can achieve it. So this is pretty much, Hiram, what I would like to talk about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
What does it take to get what I want?
That's a great question. And a lot of people don't understand that in today's society, especially over here in the United States, people are lacking the desire and the purpose to be able to get what they want. They talk about it, but they don't be about it. And when I say be about it, it's taking action because they feel that by verbalizing it, it will happen. But a lot of people fail to understand that as Christians, faith without works is dead. Not putting your faith, putting in the actual sweat equity to be able to get things done, and also seeking counsel from other individuals that, they have the trust and credibility that can give you some professional insight to change the narrative of everything else. And this is why we talked about offline about a certain circumstance that right now that was, by your perspective, unattainable, but it was. And a lot of people I'm sharing that with, not only as a veteran, but as a professional in the workforce. And I believe that with that being said, people need to understand that, because when you're down, when you're out, when you're clouded with misjudgments or second judging yourself, you know, you need to understand that it's going to be a challenge. And this is where you need help, you know? So go ahead, Marcus. Typing.
Yeah, so that's actually an interesting take you just said. And, you know, guys, you really have to know Hiram and I, we are all about unedited thing what we're doing. So we do not edit, we do not practice, not rehearse. So all is coming literally off the cuff. So I had a conversation with a client of mine tonight, and he basically was mentioning the thing, when is it that people relieve me of energy, or are they benefiting me? So what is your take on it? Basically, his quote was, when I spend my time with this person, are they bleeding me of energy, or are they benefiting me? What is your personal take on that, Myron?
Here's what I got out of this. As a military person, anytime you're mentoring recruits, are they bleeding me, or they benefit me? I have to look at as the glass always half full, right? It's benefiting,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
if they're coming to you for a reason, there is a reason why they're attracted to wanting to have this conversation or insight. Now, if you look at it from a negative connotation, then that means you don't bring any value to that person. That means you question yourself of lacking the value, and you question yourself about sharing information for the individual. That means your credibility non-verbally has gone down the tubes, because you already are suspect of what the individual wants. Maybe the person just wants to hear some insight from a different perspective. A lot of people don't understand that. That's why you have therapists and psychologists to be able to have that in a professional environment from a mental health aspect. Now, from a
Right.
business aspect, we talk about people that you're aligned with, as we talked about before. You want to be around high caliber people, and those high caliber people, as you well know, Marcus, collaborate with each other. They feed off
Right.
each other. How they challenge themselves, how they size themselves up. They find that there's something new from that other individual they can see. When somebody says it's a negative thing, then it's the insecurity, because they don't have any value of themselves. So for me, I've always been the type of individual, back to your point, to be able to appreciate the person's time, because you never can get that time back, and
Right.
appreciate the value of what that person sees in me, that can see a great opportunity to be able to share something, and then I could take something back from that as well.
That's an interesting take, because, you know, what it came down to for that person was, how long do I insist on staying on someone's list? Let's say someone has connected you with someone and you send an email and this person doesn't reply, and you send another email, or it could be a direct message, whatever. How long do you stay added until you feel it's not benefiting me anymore? Now it actually starts bleeding me. And that was interesting. And I said to that person, Hiram, the concept in its basic falls short if applied in this way, because there's something missing. And I explained to him how I personally see it. For me, it's coming down to a few questions. What do I want? And let's be honest, most people do not even know what they want in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the second question is even more important. Do I want it enough? And the third one is the killer. Am I willing to pay the price? And then I was wondering, why is it that so many people have a problem in terms of staying with something, not giving in too quickly, seeing it as you said it, it's always about it benefits me. The bleeding part, I believe, or the bleeding card is being played way too quickly in our society. Like if it doesn't work out exactly how I want it, how fast I want it, in the way I want it, then it feels like I'm bleeding. I'm bleeding out, right?
Mhm.
Instead of actually understanding, okay, what it comes down to is for me, why do I want to do it something and what for? So I believe if people start asking themselves, what drives me? As we discussed in the previous sessions, Hiram, what drives me? Let's imagine I get in touch with someone or I get introduced to someone by someone because of a burning desire. Let's say I want to get in touch with an expert on a certain subject to help me help others. When does that become bleeding and change away from benefiting me? So I personally believe it really comes down to when I understand in the end why I'm doing something and what for, what do I hope to get out of it? The answer, what am I willing to pay? There's actually just one answer. You know which one it is? Whatever it takes.
Mhm.
Whatever it takes. Without knowing too much about the person's personal situation right now, I just feel in general that people are giving in way too quickly. They are not really willing anymore to pay the price it takes to get what they want. And that is why they actually, fall short in terms of their lives, in terms of their careers. Because somehow I have the feeling that people are literally not willing anymore to pay the price it takes. And I'm not surprised you as a former military man that you say it is always what benefits me because there is a reason why.
Yeah. There's a reason why, because here's the thing: you have people that have different structures of life. You have
Mhm.
people that have been born into a privileged life that they don't understand the continuity of the value of somebody else seeking assistance. But at the same time, when it becomes redundant and you help a person, they repeat themselves. I think that's the only caveat
Yeah.
that you find yourself wasting your time, because if you're giving of yourself on a daily basis and you give the person the narrative to change it, it's like you're coaching them. They keep on repeating the same. You're gonna have to cut them because they're not performing,
Right.
because you're
Right.
giving your time, you're giving your sweat equity. And what's happening to a lot of people is they're giving up too easy. And they're giving up too
Yeah.
easy because justification, oh, my age, oh, because of the economy, oh, because it's convenient for me to retire. So if you retire, then you lose your purpose. But at the same time, you're sacrificing your character because you're not living to your full potential. Everybody has a purpose, everybody has character. But at the same time, when the workforce, and nothing is perfect in the workforce, as you well know, you have suspect people that come out there, they profile you, they gaslight you, they set you up for failure, you set yourself up for failure. But at the same time, you're not taking control of the narrative that you can do what needs to be done. Because if you're able to get up in the morning, to breathe, to eat, to sleep, those are the gifts of being independent. Now, when somebody is manipulating you or challenging you mentally, it's hitting you the soft spot because you're not mentally strong enough to withstand the challenges or embrace the challenges that you need to correct in your behavior, not only professionally, but personally as well.
So that pretty much comes down to when you say if someone is battle tested or not.
Correct. And I
So you
say,
can spot that very quickly.
right. When sorry to interrupt you, but battle tested in the sense that they've lived that experience, right? I've been
Right.
I've been down this road before. I've been battle tested. I can see it coming. Versus, oh, getting comfortable. We talked about it before, Marcus. Getting comfortable is the worst scenario you can set yourself up. It's
Yeah.
professional suicide in so many ways. People get so comfortable in. Remember, we talked about people do not embellish their character or their potential because they say, I'm comfortable at this job site in the next
Right.
5 years. And the other thing is that in those 5 years, things can change so drastically in a way where staffing, management, leadership, policies, there's an opportunity to grow out of it and reinvent themselves. But no, they want to stay in their lane and do something. And then when something tragic happens, I'll give you like my scenario, all hell breaks loose. And then you have a choice: suffer or give in or get out, you know? So,
Right.
there's a question for you.
Any suggestions on going 6 or 7 interviews for 7 weeks? I just want to work supporting others in my third career and those people going 6 or 7 interviews. Please be a little bit more specific with a clear question I can answer, because I can get the concept, LinkedIn user, but I do not really see how I can help. Give me a bit more insight, please.
So, Kimberly, since you're the LinkedIn user, just give us a different narrative of what you're at. Just keep it simple. I know you want to address the question, but help us help you in getting what's going on. So here you go. 7 different companies. So apparently she's having 7 interviews with 7 different companies.
Right. So that is beautiful. Congratulations. And now I would like to hear the real question which bothers you. Because what you just asked is not so much what you're really interested to know. So please get very specific, and then I can definitely help you.
So these are classic examples when people want to, no offense, is answer the question because so much is in their mind. They want to be able
Right.
to verbalize it only to their understanding. So we want to help people like this person right here to understand that there's always challenges, but we want to be able to tailor to what we all understand. So we know that when it's on a platform, we can all decide that this is the project, this is the problem. Let's address it. Let's attack it. Let's find a solution to it. But like I said to you before, Marcus, battle tested in a way where people don't understand. People are very comfortable and too much freedom, and people are lacking, and they think that we go through life and it's cool, but then adversity comes in, surprise situations, and we get older. And I think that's the biggest thing that we talked about offline that people need to know about that as well. Correct?
Yeah, I believe times have definitely changed. What worked a couple of years ago doesn't work anymore. So that's for sure. And you see, the other thing is what this LinkedIn user just demonstrated. If I look back at my time when I conducted interviews, either as a senior vice president or as a HR manager, the thing I was always looking for was clarity in the applicant. And most people lack clarity. And can you imagine, Hiram, why we generally lack clarity?
I can tell you why. Because we're not focused on what our purpose is. And people don't understand when they're lacking, they feel excited, but they're not convicted to their beliefs of the clarity they need to bring. And I like to say that when you're clear and concise, the clarity speaks for itself. And this person is here you go.
So I would like to be working. I've never done many rounds in my entire professional career.
So I believe there's a challenge because of the interviews and the
I think it has to do with energy. How can I manage that many interviews in such a short time?
Go ahead.
It actually makes sense. Yeah. You see, what I would like to say to you is think about how to eat an elephant. One piece at a time. So don't look at 7 interviews within 6 or 7 weeks. Look at each interview as one process. And I believe what it comes down to is focus yourself on the current moment. When tested how to do hold set for somebody, for myself, Not just how do I believe in myself, but how do I have them believe it too? Yeah, it actually pretty much comes down to if you believe in yourself, the chances are very high that other people's actually believe in you too, by the way. So what it comes down to, let me add something to that. I've been just training one of my clients, Hiram, on a high level job, like 150 base salary. And I told this person that the whole success consists of 80 or 90% of preparation and 10 to 20% of actual interview performance.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been working with this guy for quite some time. He's a dear friend. And he understood that one of the reasons why he was so nervous in many interviews, why he felt so overwhelmed, ill prepared, was literally because he did not prepare enough. So you see, the thing is, like, if someone tells me, what can I do if I do not believe in myself enough? The thing is, it's actually not the believing in yourself, because believing in myself comes based on something. So once I prepare myself, once I know what I'm doing, I can tell you my belief in myself comes naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody tells you, you just have to believe in yourself, that's just bollocks, literally bollocks. Because then I dare to ask, okay, and you remember I told you that in the back of my call as well. And I said to you, at this point, you might be able to tell me 2 to 3 hours who you are, because that would actually show me that you know who you are. So yeah, 35 interviews with 7 companies. Yeah, that sounds a bit many, huh? So that would basically mean,
So the other person says there's another person that find themselves second guessing themselves. So that's pretty much
right. Yeah, you see, that comes to the same thing. Like, what I always say, guys, is we are naturally lacking self-awareness. We are literally lacking the knowledge about who am I. So yeah, this is actually a great opportunity, Hiram. I would like to invite everyone who's here on the call and who's watching this call to join me between the 25th of September and the 1st of October. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, 1 hour each at noon Eastern Time, to join me for the Courageous Leadership Challenge. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because you see, self-confidence, people tell me self-confidence. And what it really comes down to is I am confident and believing in all the information the outside world gives me about me. So self-confidence is very fleeting. So it's up and it's down, it's up and it's down, very much on what happens from outside. So in the case that you trust more other people and you doubt yourself, it literally comes down to that you do not have enough proof about yourself. Because you see, in terms of my profession or who I am as a person, I'm 51 years old now. People can tell me what they want. I do not believe them any more stronger than I believe in myself. But you see, if someone has not done the work yet, if someone believes walking through life is just normal, and I can tell you, I have so many of my friends who, without talking with me, they would never have believed in the necessity of working on myself. So if you do not know yourself, especially if you're going into interviews, it's a natural reaction that you doubt yourself. And this is a very important part I'm doing with my clients, because, so does that make sense, Hiram, what I just said?
Yeah, it makes sense because as I shared with you prior to us meeting, myself going through bouts and bouts of interviews and then preparing myself of what they want. But the biggest caveat is I forgot who I am presenting myself into the
Yeah,
interview to be able to find a fit. As you stated, right? They look at your resume, they know you can, they want to hire you. Can you do the job? Are you willing to do the job? Are you a fit for the job? And so people don't really understand that they're missing that narrative and they need to be well prepared when they come in there. But at the same
yeah,
time, that's not just happens to the regular people. It happens to the people that are veterans as well. They're so used to being
right.
structured and articulating things, and then when they're challenged with a stressful scenario using the star system, situation, task, action, and result, then they start fumbling, they start overthinking, and they cannot flow. Which somebody like yourself, who's an interviewer, saying the person's not confident enough to answer my question.
Yeah, because you see, the thing is, and yeah, let's stay with that a little bit. Someone who's conducting interviews, Hiram, is not a jerk. You know, we are not challenging people just for fun. We are challenging people because we need to know that if this person takes over this position, that this person is actually capable of doing what they've been promising. Like sometimes it really sounds, if I listen to people, if they go into interviews, if they prep, that's actually already great. And then if I look at the quality of the prep, then I can just tell nobody has ever told you what this means to prep for an interview. And why I teach this three level of can I do the job? Do I want to do the job? And am I a fit? Literally comes down to that's all that counts in the whole entire interview process. So let me just dissect that for a second. Like for everyone who's going for an interview, please take notes. So we have three levels. When I joined an interview, I had only three questions and I was able to answer those within 15 minutes max. I walked into the interview, said to the interviewee, look, here is what's going to happen. I have three questions. Within 15 minutes, I need to know whether the answer is yes or no and why. And if you pass these 15 minutes test, then we will talk longer. But if I'm not convinced, then we will stop the interview. So what it comes down to is, can I do the job? Can I do the job means, do I have the experience and do I have the skills required for that job? I can tell you, if somebody tells you all that counts is you have to want to do the job. No, that's not the truth. Any qualified position requires experience and skills. So, can you do the job is absolutely paramount. By the way, when you send in a curriculum vitae, a resume, what really happens is the recruiting manager looks at that and thinks about does the experience and the skills portrayed and presented. So you see what I just said, Hiram?
Mm-hmm.
People only prove what they put into the resume. So I can tell you, my high level clients, they literally write a new curriculum vitae for each position they're applying for. Imagine that. That's work.
Yeah.
That's work. And their cover letters is absolutely uniquely tailored to the company and the position they're applying for. So the first thing is, can I do the job? The second one is, do I want to do the job? And do I want to do the job is, I want to know why. What drives you in life? And, that comes often down to a cultural fit, which actually comes down to, are you a fit? And are you a fit is three layers. Are you a fit for the company? Do you fit into the structure? Do you fit into the culture of the company? Do you fit into the department? And do you fit to the workplace itself? So if you actually really prepare yourself for, can I do the job? Do I want to do the job? And am I a fit for the company, the department, and the job itself? Then I can promise you, you are absolutely ideally prepped.
Mhm.
And you see, the thing is, it sounds so simple, Hiram, but it's not.
No. And,
It's
and
not.
and to your point, it's very hard because when you're set in your own ways of presenting yourself, and people like yourself, say you have to be able to change it that way. Some people take it as an insult. They say, "Well, you don't know what I'm talking about because I can do this job."
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
going to a new work environment, new set of eyes, they don't know you. They're
Right.
just reading the resume. They're telling a story. Now we're going to see if this paper matches with the face and the voice of exactly what you're saying. And at the end, I'm going to come to my conclusions to see if you complete those action items or those deliverables that can be that individual that can be selected because it's an investment. And people don't understand that in today's society, you're not investing yourselves in personal growth to be able to tailor into a job hunting. You know, and I know, especially myself, job hunting sucks. Interviews suck. You have to be good at it. And sometimes we talked about a while back having multiple interviews, but no go until I had to
Right.
change that. So,
Yeah. Yeah, because you see, that's the thing. Like, if somebody tells me I've applied for 50 jobs, and I tell them, show me your cover letters and show me your curriculum vitae. One cover letter looks like the other. So I say, okay, you basically tried 50 times the same approach, and you've been surprised that it always ended up with the same result.
mhm.
And, as I shared with you in our last session, Hiram, it literally comes down to that most people do not understand what the whole interview process is all about. Because, we are not trained to go for interviews. We are not trained to understand ourselves, nor to present ourselves. And when we present ourselves, we are truthful, and that usually means we are naive. We are sharing way too much information. And I remember when the two of us worked together and we talked about what does it really come down to. It
Yeah.
was for you to understand a corporation is meeting an entrepreneurial spirit, and that's you, a co-entrepreneurial spirit. So most of Hiram actually had to stay at home, and that's a topic for another time. But
Well,
what I would like to talk, yeah, go ahead, please.
no, go ahead, finish it. I'll let you finish. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I want to actually discuss next is the topic of networking and working the net, and what does it have to do with what we spoke about before, the bleeding or the benefit. So over to you.
So people don't understand the whole purpose of networking helps you solidify your character, but also your net worth, because there's always opportunities, but you have to align yourself with the right type of people to network, to see golden opportunities instead of being in the same rut that you can feel comfortable with. And you have to get out of your own comfort zone to be able to network with other people that see a different version of you, what you're so accustomed to. This is where leveling up, personal growth, personal development, business development comes in, and other opportunities. Just like we talked about before, a couple months ago, is for us to be able to network. We're now we've had our conversations offline, we've had discussions, we've had sessions, and now we're sharing this with the platform itself, and especially on LinkedIn on the segment of episode 41. If you like this segment, share it, like it, tag it. Feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel, LinkedIn Perspective, episode 41. This is for all you professionals or individuals that are having challenges on how to be able to present yourself, or needing some guidance when it comes to job interviews, or understanding the assessment of what needs to be done when you're running into a person like Marcus Newcomb, who is a senior vice president, a senior HR person, that he can give you his perspective of how he views the person on the other side of the table, like myself, who thinks they're well prepped, but we are not trained or conditioned to think about how we present ourselves in a workforce capability. Go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah. And so thank you very much for that intro into our next part, because that's exactly what it comes down to. When I see people network and they are surprised that other people are not interested in themselves, what would you say is the key to successful networking?
Belief.
Just based on your belief? Yeah, definitely.
I say I'll take my situation. A lot of people networking. I have a large network, but I don't brag about it. Right? I don't. There's no need for me to do that, because my work speaks for itself. I put in the sweat equity, I put in the time, I put in the effort, and people start coming into me because I'm consistent in what I do. So when we're talking about network, there's another caveat to do that. But a lot of people don't understand that you just don't network to network. You have to network with a purpose, because people, oh, I know this. Name dropping doesn't substantiate to the network quality of the people that you're dealing with. And then the alignment of the people, of the leadership of personal growth, people don't get as well. So that's why networking for myself has been very advantageous, because of what I do. I advocate for veterans and veterans' rights. I do a lot of things. And I find that by doing that, it helps people to connect as well. And we're looking for networking, that type of connection, Marcus.
Yeah, then that's pretty much what it comes down to. There's actually a saying by one of my mentors, David Meltzer, and he says the key to networking is being more interested than interesting. How does that resonate with you?
That's fact. Interesting than interested. And you have to be able to be engaged. We remember we talked about specific, we had a conference with someone. I gave them the narrative, and then I didn't focus on me. I paint the picture so the person could be more interested in what I was sharing, to be interested than being interesting on my behalf, because it took off the limelight of who I am. But as I delivered the narrative, that person was more engaged and interested in what I was sharing, that was able to network to a success as well.
Beautifully, beautifully put. I remember the times when I was teaching groups, like bigger groups. And as you can imagine, we always had those strong extroverts. And then we had some introverts. There were actually more introverts than extroverts, but the extroverts were much more, they voiced themselves much more than the introverts. So I asked the group once, who do you think is more equipped to network, an extrovert or an introvert? What would you say, Hiram?
It depends on the person, how they deliver their content, how they network. Myself, I'm an extrovert. I'm not an introvert. I know that for a fact. As an extrovert, I find myself comfortable to be able to communicate and collaborate with people, where my understanding of introvert is pretty much within themselves. They feel comfortable, and they feel that they can utilize their talents to extend themselves 9 times out of 10, depending on the type of professional, right? It's just like Microsoft is the founder of Bill Gates, right? He's an introvert by trade, but he's successful. So those people, I would say Elon Musk, I could say he's an introvert to a certain extent, right? And the man's successful. Those I could use those type of connotations, but that's very rare. But when you're going for, and these are executive CEOs, these are founders. Now, when we're talking about people from a, first line to a mid-level to executive level, that's a whole different dynamics, because now we're talking different tier levels of leadership and management that people need to understand when they're job hunting. And people like yourself that are interviewing, you can assess if they're an introvert or extrovert depending on their delivery of what they're saying, you know?
Would you say that an introvert is shy?
To a certain extent, of course. They always have some underlying issues of shyness, right? And sorry about that, shyness. But the biggest thing is they can, if they overcome their shyness, their talents will speak for themselves. But technically, introverts are, profiled as shy people because they have issues within themselves, or they're not confident enough, but they find other talents to overcome it or work around it to be able to be successful. That's what I find out.
We have 10 more minutes, so let's use that time, because I really would love to shed some light on what we're just discussing, guys. Would you say you're an outgoing person?
If you're talking to me, yes, I'm a very outgoing person. I've been an outgoing person. But I can honestly tell you, in the beginning of my childhood, in my adolescence, I was an introvert. It wasn't until I joined the military, I started to come out of my shell and become an outgoing person. Now that's part of my trait, that's part of my DNA, but that's why I can identify with both sides of the spectrum.
So let's talk a little bit about introversion and extroversion, Hiram. And let's open our horizon for a moment. Mm-hmm. So let's assume how we both love it. We know that we know that we know nothing. So let's just have an open slate, right? A clean slate. Mm-hmm. May I ask you whether you are an outgoing person has a reason for it? Let me ask you a second question. If you are tackling a problem, are you banking on your own understanding and instinct and input, or are you relying on other people's opinion and then you basically follow suit?
I would go with the first one. That's what I
see. So now I'm blowing your mind, my friend. Introversion means I am banking and relying on my own counsel, versus extraversion is I'm relying on other people's opinion because I do not trust my own opinion. Mm-hmm. So look at it differently. You basically are an introvert who is outgoing. Guess what I am? I'm an introvert who is very outgoing. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it from this perspective, it suddenly changes the dynamic. So people believe extroverts are loud, introverts are shy. This is pretty much a myth, by the way.
Yes, it is.
So now, as you can imagine, because you see, if you would be an absolute extrovert, you know what would happen? You would not listen. Because an extrovert is so interested in himself and herself, proving her worth and value to the other people, that she does not even think about listening to others. Mm-hmm. And you see, why I see you as an introvert who is outgoing is because you love asking questions. A real extrovert does not ask questions. They talk all the time. So you see, that's why I'm saying if somebody is shy, let's say it's an introvert who is shy. That actually exists, by the way. But an introvert doesn't have to be shy. I am not shy, and I'm an introvert. So that's probably something for another session. Mm-hmm. But in the end, if somebody is an extrovert and goes to network, and an introvert goes to network, I can tell you the introverted person will be much more successful than the extroverted. Simply by the amount the introverted person will listen and ask questions. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does make sense, because then you can identify where you're at, and then you can more or less because we're not paying attention to that. You think you know, but that you're not in a category where you separate yourself from these two
Yeah.
type of categories.
Yeah. And I can tell you, a real extrovert who is so reliant on feedback from outside to exist and to make up their own minds is so occupied with themselves and being liked that they believe the more they talk, the more they impress the other person. But an introvert goes into a meeting and says, I know what my purpose is for this meeting. It's just what you said before. People lack purpose, right? People do not know why they network. So if I go into a meeting and if I actually get the other person to talk by asking one or two questions, maybe a follow-up question, maybe some, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about it. Oh, that's interesting. I can relate. Go ahead. That's all it takes to actually come across as interested instead of interesting.
Correct.
So this is very important for people to understand. If you really want to be a good networker, you have to be more interested than interesting. You have to learn the skill and the art of asking questions and the skill and art of listening. So some people might be surprised, Hiram, why I talk about the art and skill of listening and asking questions, because it is. It is. That is one of the reasons why most people fail when they network. A, they are not patient enough.
No.
Networking is a long-term game, literally. It's not very short. And if I want to get in touch with someone who I know it will be worth it, how many times will I approach that person, Hiram? If I really want that meeting, how many times do I approach it?
As much as you have to. And I think that's the biggest thing. People don't understand that, I don't get what needs to get to be where we need to be at, but at the same time, we're not committed to getting that understanding because we're not committing. And I think the biggest thing people don't understand is they don't commit themselves. And and this is the thing that you shared with me, that you gave me, that you have to learn how to commit yourself. And I think when you find those little things that can tweak it here and there, it changes everything for how you present yourself, how people view you, and then understanding that there's a different contents to what you're explaining. So those forms of collaboration people need to understand, because we all need some type of support. We all need some reflection from other people that we value, right? Versus people that could criticize all day. But look, we can take this. You're not doing this. You say you're this, but you're not doing this. I see you as this. Why don't you approach it this way? And hopefully the result will come out that way.
Right. And this is definitely a topic for another time. I just want to mention that we talked about networking, but the real queen discipline is working the net. So imagine Hiram and I get to know each other, and I know Hiram has an amazing network of people, and I want Hiram in the end to introduce me to his network. How much harder is that to convince Hiram that I'm worth it to be introduced to his network?
Well, to your point, it has to be a couple of things. You have to have some value, and there's everybody has a motive of operation, an MO, right? And then you got to see, what do you bring to the table that I can benefit versus you seeking opportunity to be an opportunist to see it. And I see that has happened to me for the last 20 years, where people, I want to network with you based on if you can do this for me. But there's a give and take, because there's a lot of investment in networking. It's hard work, right? There's trust and credibility. It's your brand.
Yeah.
You don't want to sacrifice it. And the other factor is that you don't want to sell it. Why are you selling your networking base based on what money? Do you know how
Right.
long it takes to do that? Not everybody
Right.
can be successful. So that's
Yeah.
why I can see from my point from the networking aspect.
Yeah. So this is something we should have a separate session about networking and working the net, because I just realized when I talked with my client today on the electronic media, people do not understand how much it takes to actually network and work the net. And they do not understand that it's really worth the investment.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's what it comes down to. So let's have a segment about working the net and networking. I believe that would be really worth it.
I think it's really worth it for the people that are still watching this LinkedIn Live for episode 41. If you like this segment of LinkedIn Perspective, share it, like it, tag it, subscribe to the YouTube channel LinkedIn Live. And with my co-host Marcus Newcomb, you can find Marcus Newcomb on LinkedIn as well, as he states in his narrative right there, leadership catalyst and strategist. And I believe that you need people like that to be able to help you level up in your circle of influence. And what today's aspect, and we had a couple minutes, don't you believe that we're lacking the circle of influence to people to level up in today's society, Marcus?
Absolutely. And it comes down to that we do not have a base of presenting ourselves so we are worth it and be recognized as someone worth to level up. That's what it comes down to, literally. And that might blow some people's mind. But if we understood who we are, what we have to bring to the table, that it's worth it, then we would be much faster and higher up, definitely.
So what's happening, Marcus, you agree with me. I had a segment, I sent you a clip. Too many people nowadays are focusing, putting their face in the phone, and they're not focusing on what we're talking about.
Right.
They're focusing on how many likes I have, the comments I get, but they're not focusing on the self-development of people, that when we engage in ourselves, that this is the reality. The smartphone takes away, it's a distraction to a certain point. It can be leveraged as a tool, but it's a distraction because you're focusing too much energy on a media cloud that sometimes does not bring significant value or growth. It can be used as a double-edged sword. It can be used as a tool like us to be able to network, but at the same time, you're an introvert to a level that you're just focused on yourself. You're in a sense of delusion where people don't understand, and you lack the sense of reality.
And very often it's being used as an excuse, for not doing the work.
Right. And I
So
feel
definitely.
for a lot of us, when we're talking about the next show, is that think about it one time, and I practice it. How often are you putting your face on the phone? How much screen time are you putting in versus personally developing yourself? How long is time to get away from the phone and look up and see what's you're missing? And I think what we're missing is the sense of reality, the sense of engagement. We're too focused on the days. I've seen people, I'm at the gym and they're working out. They're working out and texting, or they're working out and doing it. I saw this one guy. He was sitting on the bench for 5 minutes with the phone, which I didn't say anything, but this is where society is at. This is where today's generation is at. And they wonder why we're having some social disagreements and engagement on that. So what do you have to say about that, Marcus? We got a couple.
Yeah, that's where the social phobia comes in and the insecurities come in. See, whenever I have conversations, I just realize so many people are not even capable anymore to lead a normal conversation. Literally. And I repeat myself, it really comes down to that people do not know themselves anymore. They do not know what to talk about anymore unless it's small talk. And they do not know who they are so they don't find themselves interesting, so they do not find somebody else interesting, and that's pretty much what it is. But let's have the segment, and hopefully, Hiram, earlier than tonight.
Yeah. So any closing
Because
comments?
I can tell this time is difficult for me.
Well, let's wrap it up, Marcus. Closing comments. Go ahead for you.
Definitely show up next week, because next week will be absolutely worth it when we talk about networking and working the net. Because literally, if you want to cut down the time it takes you to move ahead in your life and career, then definitely show up next Saturday.
All right. If you like this segment of LinkedIn Perspective, share it, like it, tag it. We're going to be talking next week. Hopefully, we'll get some more people, and then we'll probably speed it up. Depending on next week, won't be so late for Marcus. So if you like the segment of YouTube, episode 141, share it, like it, tag it, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in reach out to Marcus Newcomb, DM him on LinkedIn as well. Simplify. Take care.